This is Happiness Solved with America's happiness coach, Sandee Sgarlata.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's episode. I am so thrilled you're here. Happiness Solved is dedicated to giving you content that is empowering, motivational, inspirational, and of course, a dose of happiness. It's my way to give back to the world and share other people's stories. This thing called life can be challenging, and my guests share their amazing stories, wisdom, and life lessons that demonstrate anyone can choose happiness. You see, happiness is a journey, not a destination. I am Sandee Sgarlata, America's happiness coach, author of Happiness Solved. I'm also a retired U.S. national and international figure skating coach. I have a gold medal in ice dancing. I've been a certified life coach since 2004, and I've been inspiring others to shift their mindset and choose happiness for over 20 years. I am so excited to share that my next book is coming out soon. I am a co-author in the fastest growing personal development book series in the world with Jim Lutz and Jim Britt. The really cool thing is that the foreword was written by the one and only Les Brown, and for my copies, I'm on the cover with him. If you would like a free copy when it's available, email me at sandy@sandeesgarlata.com. Thank you so much for listening, and I am so grateful for you. Today's guest is Karina Manta. Karina is an American ice dancer who competed internationally with her partner, Joe Johnson, for Team USA. She and Joe toured with Cirque Du Soleil and recently won the title of Britain's reality show, Dancing on Ice. Karina was the first female figure skater to come out and says that she and Joe are known for making the sport of ice dancing a little bit gayer. Her recent memoir is called On Top of Glass, My Stories as a Queer Girl in Figure Skating. This was such a fun interview for me, and I told Karina after we were done recording that she is who I wanted to be when I grew up, but I was a figure skater in the wrong decade. Enjoy, everyone. Hi, Karina. I'm so excited for this interview.
Hi, thanks so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
Yes. Okay, so for those that don't know, I think I interviewed your brother, and that episode is going to be released before this one. But it was so funny because when we were done recording, he goes, "How are you connected with the figure skating world?" And I'm like, well, I coached and, made it to be a U.S. national and international figure skating coach against all odds, right? You know the figure skating world. Mm-hmm. I started coaching, had no titles or medals under my belt. Like I never competed out of my region as a figure skater. So there, you know the world. Mm-hmm. It's all the coaches have usually at least have been to U.S. nationals and this and that. So I was just very lucky, but it was just so funny. And then he tells me that you're his sister. Mm-hmm. And I was like, oh my gosh. And then I said to him, I was like, well, here's my email. Can you email me? And then I did. And I was like, darn it, I should have gotten his email because his publicist scheduled the interview for me. So I don't get their contact information.
Okay.
But I was like so thrilled that he actually followed through and introduced me the next day. And I was like, oh my gosh.
I know he messaged me and he told me, he was like, I was on this podcast. She's involved in ice dance. She's a writer. And I was like, how do we not know each other already?
I know, because I'm a lot older than you.
We know each other now, though.
We know each other now. So I want to hear all about your story because it's actually very, very unique in the figure skating world. So tell us about your story. I won't give it away. I want to hear it from you. So full circle, like how did you get into skating? What was it like for you? And then I may jump in and ask some questions.
Yeah, for sure. We'll start from the beginning. I grew up in Arizona, where you wouldn't think there's a lot of ice, but I went to a birthday party at an ice rink as a kid when I was like about 5 and fell in love and begged my parents to take me to skating lessons. And then from there, I just, kept skating. I was a single skater for a long time, competed out of Arizona. I wasn't a fantastic single skater, didn't really get out of my region or anything. But then some ice dance coaches moved to where I was training, and I just thought this is what it is for me. And for people who don't know the difference between like ice dance and singles, singles is the jumps. You skate by yourself, and then ice dance is sort of more like, if you could imagine ballroom dancing, on the ice with a partner, no jumps, but really intricate footwork and more dancey. So I was 16 and there weren't any boys to skate with in Arizona. So I moved to Colorado Springs to start training with a partner.
Now, who did you train with there?
So my first partner was a boy named Jonathan Thompson. And I trained with some coaches there. And then after a year, I switched partners to my current partner, who we still skate together, Joe Johnson. We trained out of Colorado Springs for several years.
Nice.
6 or 7, yeah.
And so I noticed there was a lot of big news for you came out of the closet. So tell me how
Yeah.
What was the order? Was he first, and then you, like, how did that happen? Because I don't even know if there's any other female figure skaters that could, that are gay.
There
I don't
are
know.
now.
I've never heard of any.
We're a growing community.
Well, I would imagine. I mean, come on.
Yeah.
This is 2022.
Yeah. I know, but actually, the thing that's a little bit sad is, like, I had never heard of any either.
Yeah.
Especially when I was growing up. So when I, like, started coming out to myself, it was, like, an extremely isolating experience because I really felt like I'm the only person in the world who is experiencing this. And of course, like, coming out, that opened a lot of doors and introduced me to a lot of people, which was beautiful. And there are some out women in skating now, which is such a joy. But going kind of back, so Joe, my partner, who was my competitive partner and now is my professional partner, and also he's just, like, my best friend. He was out actually even before I met him. A couple of news outlets have, like, gotten this wrong, and they've said that, like, I inspired him to come out, which we joke about.
Okay.
And just think it's funny. But yeah, he was out. He didn't. He sort of, like, kind of more. I don't know. I don't want to say more casual, but a more organic. Like, some people knew, and then more people found out, and it just sort of was, like, a thing. Whereas I think as a woman, it was like. I tried to have a kind of more organic coming out, but I found that, like, until I said something, like, very definitively and, like, had, like, that moment, the news didn't spread. It was like people couldn't believe that there was, like, a queer woman. So I sort of had to have, like, a more obvious coming out moment.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was really special that we both kind of got to experience that together. Our last season competing was really special. We did a free dance choreographed by Christopher Dean that really, like, sort of celebrated who we were as people, and I think tried to challenge some, like, gender norms in the sport. Well,
there are gender norms in the sport because everybody automatically assumes if you're a male figure skater that you're gay, and that's so not true.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, I feel bad for all the men out there that just love to skate, and they get that label, that stereotype attached to them.
Yeah, it is kind of a challenge. And I think, men and women are sort of maybe dealing with different issues in terms of, like, queer people in skating. And I think even for queer men, it's when that assumption is, like, pushed onto you. I think I have friends who that actually prevented them from coming out for longer because they were like, well, everybody just assumed and I didn't want to, fit their stereotypes. Whereas, like, I was scared that nobody was going to believe me. Because, it is, like, the way we see women in skating is hyper feminine and sort of rigid in terms of how we see women and heterosexuality and in ice dance in particular, we want to see that, like, love story between partners. Right. And so I thought, because I'm feminine, because I've been in skating, people are not going to, like, they're going to think I'm doing it for attention or whatever, like, things you hear.
Right.
So
yeah, but what was that like for you from an emotional standpoint before you came out? And did it help your performance? Like, or did it hinder your performance on the ice? Because I actually work with ice dancers right now. I'm their mindset coach for multiple. Well, right now I'm just working with one team, but we're going to be adding on more teams. We have a big training facility here in Virginia,
Amazing.
and mindset is such a huge thing, as you know.
Mm-hmm.
It's 90% of it.
That's huge.
Did it have any effect on you, or did you notice anything before and after?
Definitely. I mean, I do think before it, I had a lot of like fear, and I was, out in my personal life, but not necessarily out in the skating world for quite a long time. And so I think there was that fear that like certain people, judges, competitors, other coaches, like just people who matter in the sport, there was that fear that like people were going to find out. And I think just any situation where you're like living in fear, you're not gonna be your best self. Um, and and it was things that like I was afraid it was gonna affect my scores too. Because also, I mean, you know how skating it is. Like it is people like human beings deciding, what they like the best. And there was a moment at going to a competition where, somebody had power over me and they saw me just walking in the airport. And they were like, you need to learn how to walk more like a lady. And I'm not going to say just for, somebody in the sport who had power over me on my way to an international event. And so that kind of thing where they're like, it matters how you walk around. It matters that you look feminine all the time, even when you're not on the ice. And so obviously like that was hard before I came out. And then I will say like after I came out, it was very freeing to not hold that sort of like secret. And at least for myself, it was like, it helped with some of like the internalized shame. But I will say it was even hard after I came. I think sometimes people are misled or like coming out very publicly is challenging as well. And I don't want to be like, oh, I came out and then like everything was better. Because that's not exactly how it worked. But it was really cool and we did receive a lot of support. Like I came out right before Skate America. And we got there and in the crowd there were like all these pride flags, and there had been pride flags at events because Joe had been out before, but like that was the first time that I got to feel like they were really like for me too. And I wouldn't like take that moment away for anything. And then Nationals was so special that year too. And people really like celebrated our program and our identities. But also I was at the time I was the only queer woman I knew that was competing. And so that kind of was like tokenizing, because suddenly I was being asked all these questions of like about being a queer woman in skating, and it felt like I was the only, like I was having to speak for everyone, which is hard. And like it's not a thing I want to do. I just want to speak for myself. So we've still got work to do.
Yeah, well, and of course, I mean, our lives are a work in progress anyway.
Yeah.
I just know that like my previous work husband, I would call him,
Yeah.
he shared with me that before he came out, that he was almost suicidal at times. And that's the thing that just breaks my heart, is that, it's because I've just known, because I know so many people in the LGBTQ community. I always mess that acronym up, but I know so many people that just had it was such a weight that they lived with.
Yeah. And
it's sad. Like, it's just really sad.
Yeah. And
because, life is short and you want to embrace who you are. And in our society, while it's better, I don't know how much better it really is.
Yeah. And I think what's so hard is like it's not like people are ever in the closet because they want to be.
Right.
Usually it's like there are circumstances in their life that make it unsafe or dangerous or like personally threatening to be themselves. And so I think this like I think sometimes like we conceptualize coming out as like an individual choice, and it's like when you make this decision, but like there are people who are not, it's not on you to be out or not out. It's on everybody around you to make that a space where it's safe for you to do so.
Right. So what advice do you have for somebody who's struggling with that?
I would say try to find community. And even if it's not in person, people around you, community. I mean, I think having Joe literally and figuratively like holding my hand through the process was life-saving for me, and made it possible for me to be out. But I'm really grateful I had that, and I know not everybody has that. But I didn't have a lot of women in my life who were queer. And so I looked for books, and I looked for movies, and I looked online. And I think that's really a gift we have right now, is that even if you don't have community immediately around you, you can seek it out in other ways. And I think that can be really life-saving.
Yeah, there's, especially with social media, I'm sure there's lots of groups, Facebook groups and things like that you'll get plenty of support.
Yeah, and you can find your people. I mean, I think it's a positive of this story is like, I didn't know any queer women when I was growing up in skating. And then after I came out, I sort of like, I attracted other queer women because they were like, oh, she's here too. And so they sort of like reached out to me. And now I have this like beautiful group of people. I mean, I have like a group chat with some of the girls who have been like international competitors who have come out, Caitlin Weaver and Amber Glenn and Ray Parsons. And so like, it's so special that this community that I didn't know was there, like always existed. And we were sort of just like waiting for each other. And I promise that's there for everybody.
Right. That's great. That's great. So you really downplay, I was looking at your bio on your website, you really downplay your figure skating. And I know for me, like when I'm a guest on a podcast and I just glossed over that I'm a retired U.S. national and international figure skating coach, and they were like, wait a second, go back. You're what? Really? It's like people find that fascinating. And
yeah.
like, I really wasn't even seeking out to be the mindset coach for athletes. And two other coaches that I work with, they're like, we know what you do. We need to get you in this ice rink. And they pulled me back into it. And I was like, oh yeah, like it's a perfect fit for me, obviously. But I didn't even think about it. I've been a life coach since 2004. Never even considered it, because I guess when you're in it, you're like, yeah, it is what it is. But talk more about some of your accomplishments on the ice. Like how long were you competing at the senior level? What international competitions did you get to compete in? That kind of thing.
Yeah. Okay. Let me think about it. Sorry. I haven't, I've been out of competition for a few years now. But I competed at the senior level, I want to say 4 years international.
That's incredible.
Yeah, it was great. And, I'm an international medalist, Grand Prix competitor. Obviously,
Nice.
went to nationals several times. And that was really, special part of my life, and I'm really proud of it. And since leaving competitive skating, I've skated professionally with Cirque Du Soleil and then the TV show Dancing on Ice.
I love that. Now, when is Dancing on Ice going to come to the States, do you think?
I don't know. It would be really cool. Right now,
Yeah.
it's just in England. But for people that don't know Dancing on Ice, it's like Dancing with the Stars.
Right.
Yeah, sorry. It's like Dancing with the Stars, where you have like professional dancers then teach celebrities how to skate, and then they compete against each other. So
That's so funny, because a couple of weeks ago I had an episode air where I had Ava Otto. Her dad is John Otto, who's the drummer for Limp Bizkit.
Oh.
And she was competing with her dad on Come Dance With Me. So it's kind of the same thing, kind of like Dancing with the Stars, but they're all children that are really amazing dancers competing with a parent.
That's so cute. Oh, right? I love that.
I know. I'm like, wow, this is kind of, it's just, yeah, it's fun. It's fun.
That's so fun. Yeah.
So Cirque du Soleil, now where was that show, Cirque du Soleil, where they had an ice portion of it?
Yeah, so we were on tour. It was a show called Axel.
Axel, cool.
Yeah, it's fun. And I started with them in 2019 and then was touring up until March of 2020, and then tour got shut down, which was fine.
Yeah,
No
because
longer
of
with
COVID.
Cirque, but that was also a very cool opportunity that sort of skating opened the door for.
So was it based around ice? And then did they have the trapeze and all of that stuff going on while you were skating, or how did that work? I'm so sorry that I
Yeah,
missed that tour.
no, they have another ice show as well. The first Cirque ice show was called Crystal, and they're touring again now, which is really exciting. Um, our tour has not come back, but it was a nice show. We had, I think, about 11 or 12 skaters, and then many acrobats, musicians, aerialists, everything you would imagine seeing with Cirque du Soleil. And then there were a lot of collaborative acts where we performed together. And yeah, it was a really cool show.
That's so exciting. Okay,
Yeah.
so my backstory, which I don't talk about very much, I competed in singles,
Okay.
and I remember, and I'm tall. I'm like, I was 5'7", I'm now 5'6". And my coaches, at the age of 12, 13, they're like, you really need to go into ice dancing. And I'm like, ugh, I mean, because ice dancing, this is in the 70s. Like it was, I mean, it was
It
still,
was different.
I didn't know what I didn't know. I had no clue what an amazing sport it was, right? So I had to stop competing at the age of 16 because we moved, and the closest ice rink was 45 minutes away, and there was no ice time. It was just they really didn't support figure skating. There's a lot of rinks out there
Yeah.
that are mostly hockey, especially in
Yeah.
smaller, parts of the country and whatnot. So I graduated from high school in 1983. It's like, what, 10 years before you were born, I think. And all I wanted to do was to skate with the Ice Capades, right?
Oh,
So I auditioned for the Ice Capades. I made it
yeah.
2 weeks after I graduated from high school. Now, granted, I never even considered college because all I was going to do was skate with the Ice Capades. 2 weeks after I graduate from high school, I get this letter saying, congratulations, you're on a waiting list. And then I thought about it. I was like, well, I'm kind of tall. They probably only need, at that time, the Ice Capades they split the United States into 3 portions.
Mm-hmm.
So there was only 3,
Yeah.
companies
Like,
of the
yeah.
tour. And I would have been obviously in the chorus, and I'd probably be the only one in the center, right? Because I'm so tall, right?
Yeah.
I'm like, well, no wonder. So I had to wait. So I never got to skate.
Oh.
Fast forward, into my, mid to late 20s when I started coaching, it was like there were so many more ice shows.
Mm-hmm.
But
Yeah.
by that point I was getting married. I was already married. My ex-husband, he's now my ex-husband. There's no way he would have let me tour with an ice show, right?
Yeah.
But that's when I took up ice dancing and just fell in love with it. And I was such a better ice dancer than I could have ever been a figure skater, right? Because gravity is against you. For women, the taller you are, right?
Yeah.
But
Oh,
it's just the most amazing thing.
it's addictive. I think
It's
once you get
extremely
into ice
difficult.
dance. Yes.
I mean, I think, people are like, well, what's harder, doing a triple axel or doing, a senior level dance? And I'm like, they're not, it's apples and oranges. Like
It
you
is
can't
apples
really
and oranges.
compare.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But it's tough, but I do love it so much.
Yeah. And you were in the area with the one team that just retired this year. You have the one
Um,
team that just retired. They just competed in the Olympics, the
Maddie
team.
and Zach.
Yes. But you
Yeah.
had 2 really tough teams that you were always up against.
I mean, US ice dance is phenomenal.
It's phenomenal.
So it is like the level is just so high in this country, which is incredible. But really, if you're competing as an ice dancer in the US, you're competing against some of, the best ice dancers in the world, which is so cool. And like, I mean, to speak about Maddie and Zach, like she was an incredible, like just mentor to me in my career, and reached out to me one of my first years on the circuit, just to offer help and advice, and to talk to us. And she's a lovely person, and so I'm excited to see what she'll do in retirement. But I just really respect their careers.
Yeah, no, it's just incredible to watch. And
Yeah.
I love how the sport has evolved. Even since, I ended up, because I did not have a gold medal in the sport. And for those listening that don't understand it, skating, just like anything else, there's different levels. And to have a gold medal in ice dancing, which I achieved, is kind of like a black belt, like just to give people context, right?
That's a good analogy.
And
yeah.
when I was doing it back in the day, and I think they since changed that. I lost my lighting. I got to turn my monitor back on. I think they've changed it, but you used to have to, if you wanted to get a standard gold medal, you were not tested as an adult. So I could have tested as an adult, but I was like, no, I've been on the ice for all these years. I want the real thing.
Yeah.
So I had to solo all of my dances.
Yeah. And that's hard.
It's very hard. I was 34 years old, and my last one was the Argentine tango that I had to solo. And I nailed it. I nailed it. My first try, I passed, and I got my gold medal, and it was just, I was 34 years old. It's like, whew.
Oh, that's incredible.
It was like the hardest thing I've ever done.
Soloing those dances, I think people don't realize, because they're really made to skate with a partner.
They're made to partner.
Functionally, you're supposed to have another person there. So when you have to solo them, that's a
Well, I was talking with one of the skaters that I'm working with, and I said, do you still have to do that? She's like, what are you talking about? I go, okay, I guess they eliminate it.
I did mine several years ago, so they might have changed it since then, and I haven't kept up.
Yeah. So I want to start. So my goal is, since I'm now working with athletes again, I have a tennis player. I got some ice dancers. So I want to start getting in more professional athletes on my podcast, just to help that audience.
Yeah.
Any athlete, because it doesn't matter what you're doing, right? Your mindset is the most important thing. What advice can you give an aspiring athlete that is hoping to turn professional and get paid for it? What advice could you give in terms of their mindset and how that is going to make a difference, make or break them in their efforts to be a pro?
Oh my gosh, that's such a good question. I feel like there's so many different facets, I guess, to the mindset. Sorry, I have to think about that one.
That's okay. So what did you do? What was your pregame routine? Like, what did you do to get yourself into the right mindset before you stepped on the ice?
There was a lot I did, and this is sort of specific because I skated with a partner. But there was a lot Joe and I would do together to sort of be on the same page, and be ready to go step on the ice. And just reassure each other that, like, we were there for one another. Because I think that's such a, like, pillar or, like, something to fall back on, that we could be a rock for each other when we went out there in front of all those people and it's slippery. And so, yeah, we would usually spend those moments, like, before we got on the ice, sort of just reassuring one another that we had each other's back no matter what happened. And that helped me a lot. And I think still to this day helps me when we have to go skate, to know that we'll be a support to one another no matter what happens.
Right. Well, yeah, I mean, because there's such a trust factor there between the two of you. Especially you have to trust him because he's lifting you and spinning you.
Yeah, but he's got to trust me when he's putting me up there too. I can't.
Right. Watch it, buddy. I've got weapons on my feet.
Stuff for both of us. Yeah.
Right, exactly. So let's talk about your book. It appeared your writing has appeared in the New York Times, and you have your memoir, On Top of Glass, My Stories as a Queer Girl in Figure Skating. So what prompted this book, and tell us about it?
Okay, so while I was competing, I went to university at the same time, and I studied English. I've always loved writing, and I've always been a big reader. So that was sort of my other life outside of skating. I think I thought like I didn't necessarily, I was the opposite where I thought I didn't really see myself going into professional skating. I was like, oh, I'll have to find something to do when competition's over. So I went to school, but then Cirque recruited us, and now I love professional skating, and I sort of got like tossed into that world. But I went to school because I wanted to be a writer, and then my last year at university, I sort of like on a whim, impulsively submitted this essay I wrote to the New York Times Modern Love College Essay Contest. And it was published, which was really incredible and special. Yeah. And then after it was published, I had a literary agent reach out to me and ask if I wanted to write a book. And I couldn't say no to that.
No, because as a writer
Of course.
myself, just to get a literary agent is nearly impossible.
Oh my gosh, I lucked out.
Yes.
So, and yeah, my agent's Jess, she's amazing. And so I was really lucky that things sort of fell into place then. And then, you know, I wrote a proposal for this memoir and sent it out to publishers. And then worked on a book.
Yeah, that's great. Now talk about the book. It's your stories as a queer girl, but can you share any of those stories with the audience that you talk about in the book?
Yeah, I mean, I like to tell people the book is sort of about figure skating, but it's mostly about being a teenage girl. Because I think growing up in figure skating, I experienced this sort of like heightened version of teenage girlhood. Everything every
Well,
other.
you're around a lot of adults all the time.
Yeah, I was around a lot of adults all the time. You have these like hyper, you know, like polarized versions of gender roles in skating. And then also I moved away from my family at 16 and lived with two other teenage figure skaters. And we sort of raised each other and looked out for one another. And it was a unique experience. That was challenging for sure, but I'm also like very grateful for. So the book is just a coming of age story, and it's got, you know, all the tropes of coming of age stories. It's got a prom scene and first kisses and makeovers. It's got my, you know, little like queer twist on all of those scenes.
Love it. So what's next for you?
So right now you can see I'm in a sling. I just had shoulder surgery.
I noticed that. I was like, well, I wasn't going to say anything. I'm like, you know, could be a new fashion trend. I don't know.
Yeah. So right now I am recovering. I'm off the ice for a little bit.
So what happened?
So on this last season of Dancing on Ice, I dislocated my shoulder.
Oh no!
Quite badly.
Did you fall?
No, it was just like a lift went a little awry.
Oh, goodness gracious.
Yeah, but it's kind of a common injury among skaters.
Okay.
It sometimes just after years of, you know, partnering at those speeds and pulling on one another and lifts and falls and everything. So hopefully this will fix it.
So do you have any other shows coming up? Are you planning on writing any more books?
Yeah, I am spending a lot of time writing now because I am off the ice. I would love to write fiction. I write a lot of poetry. I think I'm going to take a step back from the memoir and nonfiction stuff for a little bit. But I'm definitely working on writing right now while I'm off the ice. And then I love professional skating. So when I'm recovered, hopefully I'll be back in some shows. I did Ice Dance International last fall. If I'm ready, I'd love to do that again. Would love to go back to Dancing on Ice next season. So we'll just see. Taking it one day at a time right now.
So since we can't really see it, I guess you have to have special satellite TV or something to watch it. How did you end up doing on the show?
Oh, last season was great. We actually won.
You did?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't realize that. Congratulations.
Thank you. Yeah, it was really exciting.
That's incredible.
Thanks.
Wow. Oh my gosh, I am so proud of you.
Oh,
and this has
thank you.
been such a great conversation. Is there anything else that you'd like to share with the audience before we finish up?
No, just thank you so much for having me. This has been wonderful. I'm so glad we've made this connection.
Yes, exactly. And I'll make sure your website and your Instagram is in the show notes. It's just her Instagram is Karina Manta, website karinamanta.com.
Thank
And it looks like your
you.
book, you can find it
Anywhere where
anywhere.
books are sold.
Anyway,
But
great.
I love indie bookstores, so if you
Oh, okay.
can, support them.
All right. Karina, thank you so much. Best of success. I'm definitely going to be watching you, and I'm going to try to see a way to watch your show because I would
Great.
love to see that. I've seen clips. I saw some clips because there's
Yeah, you
stuff on
can
YouTube
find,
and stuff.
yeah,
Yeah.
on YouTube you can find some of the
And I love the
numbers.
Platinum Blonde.
Oh, thank you. I mean, I
Personally,
do need my roots done now, but
I love it. All right. Well, take care, Karina. Thank you
you
so much.
too. Bye.
I so enjoyed talking with Karina and just love everything that she's doing, obviously. Love that she's now skating professionally and she's writing, and just, like I said, that's really who I wanted to be when I grew up. So you can check out Karina on Instagram at Karina Manta, and her website is also Karina Manta, and go check out her book. So thank you so much for listening today. As always, I hope that you and your family are healthy and safe, and that your lives are filled with peace, joy, and happiness. Take care, everyone.